one cup at a time. Yeah, this is tea time. Yeah, making a difference, one cup at a time. Tea time. So be sure to grab your tea, grab a seat, and tune in to Miss Liz. Tea time, making a difference, one cup at a time. Tea time, yeah. Tea time, time.
Well, welcome. We are back for the second tea time on this Thursday. We are here in the afternoon, and I have Carisa Cole Sharrett. That's right, we're going to share it today. We're going to spill some tea, and we're going to make a difference by getting to know Carissa's TEA. So before we get started, we're going to do all of that good stuff that we always do here on Tea Time with Miss Liz, and we're going to get you going with the disclaimer and the incredible bio and all of that good stuff, and then Carissa's going to jump in and spill the tea with us. So the disclaimer for Miss Liz's Tea Time live shows. Miss Liz myself is going live using StreamYard. Before leaving a comment, please grant StreamYard permission to see your name at StreamYard.com. Please be advised that the content brought forward for any Tea Time show hosted by myself, Miss Liz, is always brought forward in good faith, however may bring forward dialogue and opinions that are not representative of my platform. The facts and information are perceived to be accurate at the given time of airing. All Tea Time guests and audience participants are responsible for using their good judgment in taking any action that may relate to the discussion. The content brought forward may include discussion for some where they may be emotionally at risk. It is significant to know that the show is engaging in discussion forums only to offer and inspire awareness and connection and is not providing therapeutical advice. If you have any questions about the disclaimer or the panelist discussion, you may freely contact me, Miss Liz, at my email at bookingmissliz@gmail.com. Moving forward, should you voluntarily participate in today's show in any aspect, I myself, Miss Liz, welcomes you. And should you find that the show is not made for you at this time, I respect that, and I will see you at a later show at a later date and time. And again, all tea times are on Thursday unless they are a rescheduled tea time. So Thursdays are the day for Miss Liz. We spill tea on Thursdays. So now I'm going to give you a little bit of Carisa Cole Sharrett. Is the founder and CEO of Bravely Intentional Life and the creator of Empowered Mom Blueprint programs. Her passion is fueling others for empowered living in addition to being mom. To a young man with autism and intellectual disabilities, a baseball lover, go Yankees, and movie anthologist. She holds a Master's of Education and Special Education degree, is a certified special needs life quality coach, and serves as an accountability group facilitator and Leader Learning Guild member for the National Society of Leadership and Success. Carissa also holds a current K-12 special education teaching certification and serves as an award-winning lead teacher, trainer, and district case manager for 8 years in both the public school and charter school systems. And her favorite color is black. Her word is fierce, and she's in the United States. So we're going to get her to jump in, and then we're going to just sit back and spill some good old tea. So let me grab her. Welcome, Carissa.
Hello.
It is an honor to have you here. So let's spill it. Let's get started. Who is Carissa, and how did Carissa get to where she is today?
Well, I'm just so grateful, number one, to be here and thank your audience for being here as well. As you said, I am mom to a now 19-year-old who was diagnosed with autism at age 3. And so for the last 16 years, our journey has been together, trying to figure out the twists and turns of life. And so in that time, there was just so many things that I wished I had help with, I wished I knew more about, I wished I had support for. And over the years, there's become so much more help for parents on how to help your child with disabilities or special needs. What kind of services do they need? How do you get that? Who do you get that from? But Miss Liz, there's still such a gap with care for the caregivers, the primary caregivers, the parents, which are often moms, right? Most often moms. And a lot of times we talk about our moms being the glue of the family. And what happens when the glue is no longer able to hold people together? And so that's my passion, is really helping moms and primary caregivers to build a strong foundation so that they can lead and serve their families and fulfill that mission to their families.
So, where did the name Brave Intentionally Life come from?
Great question. So there are 4 key words that I lead my life by. Those 4 words are courage, intention, connection, and hope. And from those first 2 words, courage and intention, I came up with Bravely Intentional Life, because I really feel like that's part of what we as parents of children that have disabilities or special needs, we really need to have courage, and we need to live with intention. So that's where that came from.
Well, that's really cool. And I love that you have those powerful words as well, right? Connection is really deeply important. Being a mom of a child with autism, what was your biggest struggle?
I think looking back, my biggest struggle was not understanding that what I needed to do to prepare for this journey. Back when Liam was diagnosed, it was all about early intervention, and it still is. And early intervention is important. As an educator, I can say that it is important. But I didn't understand that early intervention wasn't going to be the magic answer, I guess. And so I didn't prepare myself for the long term. I just thought I'll throw myself in, do all these things that they're asking, and give all my energy and effort. And at some point that will change. Well, it has changed, but not in the way that I thought. And I really wore myself out those early years trying to really help him without making sure that I was prepared. So a lot of people talk about that. Yeah, I kind of felt like I was told it was like a sprint, and maybe it's more like a marathon. And I say, no, it's not a sprint or a marathon. It's really like a track meet, right?
Yeah.
This life, we're always going to have things that we need to help our children with. As parents of any child, we're always parents, but as parents of children that turn into adults with disabilities or special needs, we often have to give them more care during their lifetime. And so for me, I try to relate it to a track meet. We have to show up, we have to do a lot of different events, we have to have a lot of different skills, and we have to have the endurance to make it through that. And if we're not prepared ourselves, we really can't help our children long term. I've met so many parents. I mostly taught in the middle and high school levels, so from 12 to 18. And the parents that I met in those classrooms with those children were just exhausted because, like me, they had given so much up front without a thought for what to do. Life doesn't end at 18, right? So they had a lot of life left to do. And that's why I'm so impassioned to try to help parents figure out how to prepare themselves for the journey ahead.
So, we have a question here for you, Carissa. Being a mom of a 19-year-old autism boy, where did you find the early prevention?
So it depends on what state you're in or what country you're in. You'll need to look at what uh, options you have. In the United States, there is definitely a program for early finding out early. So you need to go to your local school district and they can test your child if you're concerned with some of the things that you're seeing. That is mandated federally. In other countries, there's other ways to do that. But if you need somewhere to start, go to your pediatrician and ask for some help.
And we have another question here for you. Being that you are a mom of a a son of autism, did that get you into the field you are today?
Absolutely. Definitely. I didn't really know much about any types of disabilities growing up. In my time of growing up, and this is going to age me, Miss Liz, but in high school, there was a whole separate wing for people that had disabilities. So we didn't really interact a lot. And
Yeah.
I'm so glad that's no longer the way things are. But I didn't really know anything until Liam was diagnosed. And then I got thrown into this world of disabilities and autism and all the things that go with that. And as I said, on the journey, I really got depleted and um, didn't know who I was anymore. And I came to a point where I went through a very difficult divorce and had to figure out how to help support me and my boys. And so I did the one thing that I swore I would never do, Miss Liz. I went back to school and became a teacher. And I'm the daughter of two teachers. So I was like, never, not going to do that. I know what kind of work that takes. But I became a teacher because number one, it fit with the responsibilities I had for my kids as a single mom. I needed to have something that would go with their schedule and especially Liam's because it's hard to find care for someone that has special needs or disabilities, right? So I couldn't just let him come home from school, even as a middle schooler. And then the second thing was that I really felt like I could help families like mine and bridge that gap between being a parent and then having to work with the school system. And so that is why I work with families now. And it's just evolved into moving beyond working just in schools because there are some limitations to that. And I really wanted to do more to help families practically and tactically to help them have better lives, not just when their kids are in school, but overall.
And I think you gave a really important message there. Going back to school, sometimes we say, "Oh, well, we're a mom now. We can't do this. That's past." But there's never a time where you can't just go back to school. If you really want to get educated and you really want to make a difference in your life and just do something for a change, you could be 60, 80, and you go back to school. Like there's no time limit on education. You know.
Amen. Yes, for sure. I went back to school after having graduated the first time 20 years prior. Everything was way different than when I got my bachelor's degree, and my master's degree was, primarily online. It was a way different experience. But you know what? Yes, I went back in my 40s to school and was able to graduate with my master's degree as a single mom at the time. And so the spirit of wanting to really fulfill that mission to your family and your kids is really strong, and that can propel you if you allow it to.
I like that you said that fulfill, because we as moms, we have to fulfill ourselves as well, Just because we become a mom doesn't mean that we stop caring about ourselves. And self care is really deeply important. So now I want to get into the blueprint. How did that all come about?
So again, having lived this life for the last 16 years, navigating through all the different phases and things I've had to go through with my son and helping him to learn, helping me to learn, helping other families to learn, really came up with some core concepts that help me. And I wish that I had this. I wish I had the blueprint long time ago because it would have cut down on a lot of the twists and turns I went through. We all have to experience things in our own way, but having a blueprint gives you some parameters to go with, right? And if I would have had that kind of direction, it would have taken me a lot less years to get where I'm at today. And so my hope is that by sharing my experiences and my blueprint, that some of the families and moms that are out there now really struggling with raising a child with autism or some other disability can take this blueprint, apply it to their life, and be able to move forward into that life that they so desire much quicker than I did. I really don't want it to take 16 years for all of you, right? And
Right.
so the blueprint is based on those four words I told you about earlier about living with courage, living with intention, living with connection, and living with hope. Those are the four pillars of that program. Courage really talks about taking a look at where you're at right now, being honest with yourself, being open and having the courage to change, and then letting go of things like guilt of what you may have wished you'd done different. You know, when you know better, do better, but you didn't know. So that's okay. Forgive yourself for that, for stopping that inner critic that's always telling you you're not doing enough. And the big one in that is really learning to grieve your losses. We're often told as parents that, hey, well, your kid's still alive, there's nothing to grieve. But that's actually the opposite, right? We hold on to this grief of this picture we had for our beautiful child, and when we don't process that, it holds us back. And so living with courage really goes through that. Living with intention talks about how important it is to have a vision and a plan, even if it's one that's flexible. You can't expect life to get better or meet the dream that you have or the vision if you don't have a vision, if you're just aimlessly walking around doing stuff. And a lot of times, as parents with children that have disabilities or special needs, we're just so busy and so caught up in things, we just don't feel like we have any energy for that. Again, the opposite is true. When we have a vision, when we have a plan, that actually energizes us to do the things that move us forward into the future. So living with intention talks about how can we do that? What systems and parameters can we set up in our life to help us to live with intention? Living with connection is all about connecting with yourself, with your higher being or your creator, with your family, with your community, and really connecting yourself into the village of mankind, right? Because so many families feel isolated and lonely because they feel misunderstood. And that is true a lot of times, but there's no way to solve that without being part of the solution. And so I go into talking about, how do you connect with people? How do you help them and show them how they can best support you? How do you teach them how to care for your kids so that you do have that support you need? And then how do you lead the team of professionals that is pouring into your child's life, right? You have to learn to be the quarterback, the point guard, the person that is directing people. You may not know everything, but you do need to be the leader of that team and take that responsibility. And so living with connection really goes into all those connections we have. And then lastly, living with hope really talks about how to have a surefire way to have hope in our life. And the key concept in that is that giving of ourselves and serving others is the fastest and easiest way to bring hope into our own lives. When we disconnect and we don't serve others, all we see is hopelessness, right? When we give hope to someone else, it gives them hope, but it reflects that back to us. And so we talk about how to do that, especially as a parent that's already got a lot going on. How do we live in anticipation of good things? How do we look at our life as a gift and opportunity rather than just hopeless? And so those are the 4 key things that I go through in that program.
Well, we were kind of saying that in the backstage before we even went live, is that, by giving and sharing our different teas in the world, you know, not every cup of tea is going to be something that resonates with us, but maybe a week later, that tea that we shared might resonate with that person that it didn't resonate with, because at that moment, that's where they are and the stages that they are. So I think it's a good time to ask you, Carissa, if I ask you, what is your tea today? What tea are you serving to the audience?
So my 3 words for T are treasure, empower, and activate.
Ooh. So do you want to get a little bit into those words?
Yeah, I'd love to. So treasure, I really think about treasuring yourself with time. You mentioned something earlier about self-care, and that is so key. We need to treasure ourselves as caregivers, as moms. If you're a spouse or partner of someone that is caring for a child with disabilities or other special needs, you need to make sure that they're treasuring themselves with time. We need to be able to take care of ourselves so that we can take care of others. I tell the moms that I work with that you can't be for someone else what you refuse to be for yourself. You have to start with you in order to fulfill that mission to your family. So treasure yourself with time. And then the E is empower, and it's empower your life with empathy, empathy for yourself, empathy for your child, empathy for your family members, empathy for those around you. When you live with empathy for other people, you are opening yourself up to receiving the empathy yourself, as opposed to just living in a kind of a judgy situation, right? Like I'm judging myself, I'm judging my family members, I'm judging my friends. When you live in empathy, that's what comes back to you, and that's what we need as parents. And then activate is activate your growth with appreciation, living with gratitude, living with the thought of not only receiving gratitude and giving it, but spreading it is what allows us to lead that life that we so long for, that life where we're fulfilled, where we're content. And so every day trying to find the gifts, and gifts don't always come in pretty packages, right? Some are like in a brown bag. Sometimes the gift is showing us what we need to change, who we need to let go of, what things need to not any longer be a part of our life. Gifts don't always come in a pretty bow package. It's like, oh, cool. Sometimes the gift is wisdom and knowledge. And so when you look for the gift, you're going to be able to find it. When you see every problem, situation, or challenge as an opportunity to have a gift or learn some wisdom or correct your path, that's how you're going to move forward.
Absolutely, and sometimes we take stuff for granted so much, right? And it's like your tea, treasure the time, you know, and empower empathy. Like we need more empathy in the world, and we're not being soft cotton balls when we're showing empathy for other people, because at the end of the day, we all need a little bit of empathy. We all need a little understanding, a little of acceptance. You know, every single human being out there needs that understanding of knowing that they are accepted, right? And I
Right.
think that's like what special need children, they need that understanding that they are accepted. And you had said something a few minutes back, Carissa, about grief, the
Mm,
look of the child. you know uh, as a parent, we have this look of how our babies and our children should look, and then when they come out and they're not that look, it's a loss for us. And we have a comment here from a lady in Australia who says, "Thank you for mentioning grief. Nobody ever mentions grief with autism children."
mm,
And I think it's very important that we get that out there, that there is grief of the living as well as grief of the passing. There's so much
yes.
more grief of living of different things, right?
Yes, for
And
sure. The grief is
so
not only just for your child, it's for the things that you're having to set aside. I mean, like I mentioned earlier, I teaching and being someone that works in special education and working with parents in this capacity wasn't my dream in life, right? I gave that dream up helping to care for my son. Now, some people may say maybe you shouldn't have, and maybe I shouldn't have. I don't know, but it's led me to where I am today. But I did have to grieve the life I left behind because I chose my son and his future and the things I needed to do for him over my career. And I do not regret that at all, but I did have to grieve that what I left behind, I didn't know how to um, look at that anymore, right? And that's part of what got me into the black hole that I was in. So you're grieving not only what your child's not becoming, but in your mind, right? They become something else, and that's okay, but you still have to grieve what that picture you had. You grieve the picture of what you thought your family was going to look like. You grieve what you've lost as a person, and you grieve the future that you'd hoped for your child. Doesn't mean they can't have a fulfilling future. But as all of us, it's not even just children with disabilities. There's children that um, do get involved in other things that get them off track in life, right? And that just as a parent, you want your children to succeed. And so, yes, thank you from Australia for that comment. I think it's really important that you really sit down and think about what things are you grieving, because that's the first way to start your road to healing is acknowledging it. What did I lose? And it's okay to have that feeling of loss, right?
Yeah.
Because as you process that loss and as you acknowledge that loss, you can move on from it. You can take that out of your suitcase of baggage and leave it behind, and your weight is lighter knowing that you've acknowledged it and you say, yes, it's a loss and I'm going to grieve it. And as I grieve it, I'm going to start to let some of it go. Now, things don't always just go away, right? But as we continue to process that throughout our life, we're able to be healed and move forward from it. And as I said earlier, see it as a gift or opportunity. For many years, I didn't see my son's disability as an opportunity. But as we've worked together to help families and where we're at today, we're making a difference for other families like ours. And how can I not say that's a gift? I wish I had that when I was going through things at his younger years. So we have become the gift in our story.
And she wants to say you're a beautiful soul.
Thank you.
And it's so true though, Carissa, that we don't speak about grief, because when we think of grief, we think of heartache, right? We think of pain. But grief is also a stage of growing.
Mm,
It's change as well, because sometimes we need grief to open our eyes and say, okay, I'm in it too much. Something's showing me the way, you know? And I feel that we really need to bring that to the table more, is speaking of grief of the living, grief
hmm.
of things that we live with, not only put grief, the title on passing, you know.
Yes.
I think we really open up some doors like that. So maybe that's something that, you can think about and you can add to the blueprint. And, maybe there are
Yes.
moms out there that are scared to mention and talk about that grief, you
Yeah.
know.
We have a
So,
whole module in that in the courage to change section that really goes into grieving, and not just like you're saying, grieving the living things, grieving even moving from one place to another can be a loss to some degree. So it's not just people involved in grieving. There's phases in your life that you can grieve having passed through. There's relationships that people are still alive that you may be grieving. There's, in my case, had to grieve losing the career path that I had chosen for myself. Yes, I chose a different way, but I still had to grieve what I'd left behind. And so there are so many things that are encompassed in grieving that people don't understand need to be acknowledged and that are holding them back. Those negative feelings are sabotaging our life. It's like when you have a hot stove and you put your hand on it and you feel that pain, do you just keep your hand there to
no,
feel
you
the
move
pain over and
it.
over? You take it off, right? And that's the same thing with our negative emotions. Negative emotions are there to alert us that something needs to be addressed, something needs to be heard. And when we look at that and say, okay, I'm going to take a closer look at that and figure out where that feeling's coming from and address it, that's when we can heal. When we just say, oh, it hurts and it just hurts and I'm just going to stick it in the back closet over here, it's like keeping our hand on the stove. We just continue to have that pain and we don't resolve how do we move forward from that.
And I think that's really a strong statement, right? To address it. Like, if we just keep hiding it and hoping that it's going to go away, it's not going to go away. you know like you said, like, put your hand on the stove, that burn mark is still going to be on that hand, so you're going to have to take care of that hand. So I think we really need to slow down and just process things in a different way. And we need negative in order for positive, but we don't need to stay in the negative. We can move
Yes.
into the positive. And I think that's what I'm getting from the blueprint, is the courage to change, right? To be
Yes.
courageous is scary, because there's
Yes.
a lot of change in courage. You know, um, we have a question here for you on courage. What was the most courageous thing you've done in your life, Carissa?
Oh, wow. That is a great question. There are so many things that I've gone through in my life, but I think that really being able to take this leap this last year. So it's always been so easy to help parents through other people, through the school system, through people I know, and to take everything I've learned, to be vulnerable with my story, to be willing to share that with other people, to give them courage, to give them hope, has been one of the, I wouldn't say hard, but one of the most courageous things I've done, because you allow yourself to be opened up to other people, to see who you are on the inside, right? And see all the flaws and all the things that you went through, because you can, in our world today on social media, you can just look pretty and nice and have all these filters and make your life look amazing. And I'm here to say that's not real life, right? I've gone
Yeah.
through a lot of challenges in my life to get where I'm at today. But being able to share that with other people and to do that with an open heart, trusting that um, I'm sure there's going to be some ugly people out there. You know, that's just how our world is. But trusting that the message that I'm trying to share is going to reach the hearts of the people that really need it, right? And that I can help them in some way has been probably the biggest act of courage I've had to do.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that, and thank you for the amazing question. I love when the audience comes in and gives me these powerful questions. I'm just like, whoa, that's what I want to hear. So thank you again for that question, um, Carissa. I want to get into the Yankees because your son's a big Yankee fan, and I've been following you because that's what I do is I follow my guests, and I see a lot of Yankee stuff. So, what is the Yankees to your son and to you
I had to laugh when you when I was backstage and you had to say that out of my
on your
out of my
bio?
bio. I had to giggle a little bit, because if you're not a Yankees fan, you could be a Yankees not fan, like completely on the other side. And that's like gritting to people, right? But I grew up here in Arizona, and we didn't have a baseball team growing up at all. And I really loved watching, especially Derek Jeter play. For those of you who know any Yankees players, Derek Jeter is now a Hall of Famer. He was a shortstop for the Yankees. And so my older son and I started following Derek early in his career. And we were both big Yankees fans throughout my oldest son's life. And he actually is now a professional baseball player. He's working his way through the minor leagues, but yeah, he's a professional baseball player. So what was really cool is last year he actually was in the minor league system for the Yankees, and so that was fulfilling a childhood dream for him. He got to go to big league spring training with the Yankees and put on that pinstripe uniform, and it was just such a um, you know, coming full circle moment to see him out there on the field fulfilling his childhood dream. And that's what we as parents really want, right? We want to fulfill that mission of giving into our children and letting them see their potential. And it goes back to what we talked about earlier, Miss Liz. We can't do that if we're giving from an empty cup, right? If we're not taking care of ourselves, we can't do that for the people we love. And it's so easy when you have other children in your family that don't have a disability or a special need, for them to kind of get sidelined by all the needs that your child has that does have a disability or special need. And I could have, and for, you know, I definitely wasn't a perfect parent. There were definitely years, like I said, early on, especially when I did put a lot of my time and attention to my younger son. But I found that I really needed to find ways to invest in my older son. And so now we, you know, Liam has learned that when baseball season's around, we're going to spend time, you know, supporting my older son and finding ways to invest in his life. And so if you're out there and you do have several children in your family, make sure that you are spending time and finding ways to connect with your other children. It's so important that they feel loved and prioritized as well. One of the things I tell families is that we can't leave anyone behind in our family. That includes ourselves, that includes our spouse, significant other, partner if you have one, and that includes your other children. Everybody needs to have that opportunity to learn and grow. And so you can't put all the focus on one person and everything they need, right? Sometimes you've got to make decisions that maybe it's not the 100% best for this person, but it's the best for everyone overall. I have a great example of that this past year. Liam graduated from high school. He was on a waiting list for an adult program that still didn't have a spot for him after, over a year. So we're still waiting. And I had to make the decision of whether I was going to put him in a program that was not as fulfilling, not as engaging, not as nurturing for him, but gave him some time away from the house, or having him at home and having to do all of that care and nurturing and teaching of him myself, which would mean I wouldn't be able to help other people because that's a full-time job. And so with his input, with Liam's input, we chose to put him in a program that wasn't the one we wanted him in long term, but for the summer it was okay. He knew the people, he felt comfortable, he wasn't as engaged, but he did that for the summer. And in the fall, he was finally had a place at this new place and he loves it. But that's just one example of how I could have chosen to put him 100% at the front of my priorities and put myself behind, put all the people that I'm serving behind, put my other family members behind, and I didn't. We talked about it and we figured out a plan that everyone was okay with, right? And it wasn't a long-term plan, it was a short-term plan.
Well, and you just mentioned something really important, Carissa. You had a family plan, you know? You didn't have just a one-on-one plan. You had a family plan, so you had everyone involved. And I think it's deeply important when we have special need children or we have somebody who needs that extra attention, that we don't forget about the other ones. And we say, you know what, today mom just has to give a little bit more to your brother or your sister. I still love you. And how can you help me? Kind of get them, encourage them to join you as well. I find if you include them, it helps a lot. Um, so, what steps have you taken to include your other children?
So I just have the two boys, and they're 7 years apart. So that helped me a little bit. My other son is the oldest. So some of the things we did, like I said, were in the early days, I wasn't as good at doing that, but we really tried to have a family vision. And one of the things that I do in my living with intention is how to create your family's why. Why are you doing this, right? And then build your life around that. When everyone understands the family why, then they understand what the vision is. And then all the things that go with the vision are much easier to accomplish. You're measuring everything up against what the family vision is, as opposed to just taking things as they come. So that way I can make choices. Okay, this is our family vision. Are we, and we have this opportunity. Does it match with it? And it was much easier with my older son to then say, okay, this is our family's reason why we're doing this, right? This is our goal. So that's why we're choosing this or not choosing that. And so that helped with both my kids to understand what the long-term plan was. With Blake, one of the key things I really tried to do because he was older was not allow him to take on more responsibility for his brother than what was needed. As an oldest child myself, yes, there are times when you need to help with the younger siblings, but it can be so easy when you have a child that's older or even one that's younger, but that has surpassed the child that has disabilities as far as like abilities to depend on them to fill in the gap somehow. And I really worked hard not to allow Blake, my older son, to carry so much burden of his younger son, right? Of my younger son. So that was one way that I really tried to do that. The second way was, yes, his sports were a priority because that was his passion. And so at one point we bought a minivan that, we outfitted, it had the video, we had all sorts of stuff in the back, the seats folded down, and we'd go to baseball games. And sometimes I'd just be in the van, figuring out how to help Liam get through things while Blake was doing his sport. So we find ways to do that. We also had times where we just spent together alone, away from all of it. Looking back, I really wish I'd been able to do more of that And if I would have known what I know today, I would have been able to implement that sooner. So that's one of the things I tell parents. It's really important to establish your family why, and then to incorporate all your kids into that so that you can come up with a plan of action for your family. Every family is different. So you need to look at what your family makeup is, what your kids need, and then make a plan around that and get everybody on board.
Well, and you said it right at the beginning of the show, you don't want people to take 16 years to figure it out, and that's why you have the
Yes.
blueprint. So to get to understand the blueprint a little bit more, Carissa, how do people go about that?
So the easiest way is just to go to my website and book in a call with me, and I can definitely meet with you one-on-one to talk about it. You can also see on the website a little bit more information about the blueprint. My website is www.bravelyintentionallife.com, and you can kind of see a little bit about what the blueprint's about, what it covers, and then once we talk, you'll have a clear understanding of whether that's something that is the right fit for you, the right tea, or if it's not the tea for now, or maybe it's a tea for later. But that's the easiest way, is for me to connect with you personally and let you know what that looks like. It is a 16-week program, and it has 12 modules in it. So it's 12 modules over 16 weeks. And the reason why I do that is because I want to make sure, as moms of children with disabilities or other special needs, that you don't feel pressured to um, stay on track every single day if you can't. Things come up. Things come up when we're just parents, right? But
Yep.
things definitely come up when you're raising someone that needs extra care. And so I've really broken it down into bite-sized chunks where there's, basically 5 things you do during the week over your 7-day period, but maybe this week you can only do 4. Well, you've got some extra weeks built in there where you have some slack, right? That you can get that done. You go through it at your pace. It is available digitally, so you don't have to go to a class somewhere, jump online anywhere. It's a digital course that you go through, and then you get my support. Is small group interaction with Q&A sessions, and during that 16-week period, you also get 4 individual sessions with me to work on things specific to your life, to your family, to what you're struggling or being challenged with.
And you call it the blueprint for moms. So is it open to a blueprint for dads?
It is definitely open if dads would like to go through it. I've actually had several people tell me, hey, any parent could take this and it would help them. And so I'm open to that. Because I'm a mom and because I've gone through that, and like I said, in a lot of cases, moms are the primary caregivers. I feel that that's who I connect with the best, but I have helped many dads and families in general, grandparents. And so there's ways to do that as well. One of the other programs that I do is a mental fitness boot camp, and that's open for anyone 15 and up. And we really talk about how to power self-care through mental fitness, right? That self-care is not just going to the gym or getting your nails done or getting a spa day or meditating out in nature. Those things are all part of what you can do for self-care, but self-care really encompasses physical self-care, emotional self-care, mental self-care, and spiritual self-care. And when you focus on getting your mind right, a lot of times those other things can get in order quicker, right? Again,
Yeah.
trying to talk about cutting down the time of getting there. And so I do a mental fitness program that is open to moms, dads, grandparents, even teenagers in your family. 6 weeks, we learn about the 3 core muscles of mental fitness and how to apply them in our life, and how to stop the sabotage that's happening in our life to keep us held back from the life that we really want to live.
I like that word sabotage because there's so much of it out there, right? We're our worst critic. We're like, oh no, I can't do it today. No. And I kind of like that you got the boot camp because you got the boot. Like, let's go.
Yes, boot that judge out of your life. The judge is our biggest saboteur. It works in 3 modes. We judge ourselves, right? We're
Yeah.
always being critical of ourselves. We judge other people and we judge our circumstances. And being able to recognize that in our life and learn how to intercept that quicker is what helps us to move forward and face those other things and take care of ourselves better.
So now I want to get into the school systems. You being a teacher, your parents being a teacher, have you seen an improvement for the special education in the school systems, or have you seen like a decrease? Like, is there improvements?
I think,
Pros, cons.
yeah, for sure. I think there's definitely been improvements over the years. I do think overall, in general, our society doesn't value education the way it used to be valued. So I think there's a public perception there that I hope that will change, because that affects the school system. It affects how much we invest in our school system, how much we invest in our teachers. We're losing teachers like crazy, right? I'm one of them. I'm no longer teaching in the school system because I felt like I could help parents better on my own, right? Um, but we need to work on valuing education more in this country, in the United States, in countries around the world, and make it more of a priority again. Because without educators, how are we going to educate the people that are leading us, taking care of us as we grow old? I mean, this is what we're facing, that we're raising a generation of students who are so focused on test scores and things that, you know, are just benchmarks of success, as
Yeah.
opposed to what are we really educating students with. As far as special education, I do think a lot of strides have been made in that area. There's still a lot of work to do, but as I mentioned earlier in the show, when I was in school, we didn't even integrate with students that
Yeah.
had disabilities. They were on another side of school. We never really even saw them, didn't know what was happening with them. And I just think that that is so sad as I look back now. And so one of the initiatives that I had when I was in the school system was I created a peer tutoring program where students from the general education population would come into my classroom every single period of the day. I was working in middle school, and they'd work alongside my students that had disabilities, and their whole grade for that class was based on them interacting and learning how to help my students. And it was so amazing to see the bonds that people formed, even with students that were nonverbal, that were, had difficulties learning. It really opened up people's eyes to, wow, look at the effort they're putting towards learning. If I only put half of that much effort, I'd probably be doing really great in school. And so those types of programs that we have in school now are much better for helping not only the students that have disabilities, but our general education population to understand better what are the struggles, how can I support, what do I need to know, what empathy can I show. And it just warms my heart, Miss Liz. The last couple of years, uh, we've run into former peer tutors of mine out in the community, and they still recognize my son, they recognize me, and they talk about how that experience really changed their life and how they treat people out in public now, and how they can identify that, hey, maybe that person just has a challenge that they need some support or empathy with, as opposed to me judging why they're acting a certain way or unable to do something. And so in that way, I feel like our education system is doing better with um, bringing awareness, knowledge, compassion, empathy, and working together into the school system. And the only way that that can keep happening is, once again, if we're supporting education, if we're investing in education, because um, we're already short in the United States for sure. Tons of special education teachers. It's a hard, challenging role to be in. And when we're not taking care of our teachers, making sure that they're making a livable wage, giving them the support and the supplies that they need, it makes it really hard to want to keep doing that job day in and day out. And so, I just again appeal to people: support your school districts, support the legislation that helps to invest in them if you want to have a strong education system and raise kids that are a benefit to our society, that give back to the people that they live around and with in their community.
Well, I'm really glad that you brought that up, Krista. Appreciation. And you said that in your tea, activate the appreciation, be grateful. And I think that the teachers are so unappreciated, that they do get frustrated and they're like, well, what am I here for? What impact am I actually making? So we really need to start appreciating the teachers, because teachers have the hardest job out there. They're doing this because of passion. Well, 95% of the teachers are. We do have that 5% where it's just a job for them, but the 95 that are there with the heart and the passion, let's appreciate them and let's say thank you. So if you know of a teacher that is doing special ed or special education out there, just say thank you. Just go up and say thank you, because I bet you that's going to make a big difference. uh, you know. And Chris, I really want to just thank you for what you've done and the services that you've done. And as a mom, so thank you from a mom to a mom for what you're doing. It really means a lot. And I'm gonna get all teary eyed because that's what I do. Is I just get all
Aw.
emotional.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. And yes, I second your call for action, which is, appreciate any teacher and ask them what do they need to help support them. So many times as teachers, we're spending our own money to get just everyday type of supplies. Ask them what they need. Get something for them that they actually can use. I know it's so cool to like give all these cutesy little gifts for Christmas or whatever. Sometimes really what a teacher needs is like some classroom supplies or a gift card to Amazon. Or one of the places that I always went to was Teachers Pay Teachers, where teachers put, things that they had put together in a place where other teachers could purchase and use them. Ask teachers what they need, right? Yes, it's cool to get cute gifts, but when I'm spending money out of my own pocket to help your child, it would be great to have some support in that area. And so, yes, say thank you. Don't give the Starbucks gift card. I mean, that's cool, but
Yeah,
ask them
we
what
can
they
have a coffee
need.
at another time, and maybe we don't need that coffee because we need to be a little.
I need some glue this week, right? I need glue sticks, or ask the teachers what they need and be willing to support them, even if it's just a little bit at a time. But that is so much more meaningful because you're not only giving to the teachers, you're giving to the kids, right? So you get a double gift in just giving that way.
And I like that you say that, because for the teachers out there, most of them are putting from out of pocket to create all of these inventions and activities for your children and all of that. We as parents, we don't sometimes see that. So we just think, oh, the school system has that, the school covers that. The schools don't cover any of that extra stuff. So it's all the teachers from the heart and the passion that's saying, you know what, I want to teach my students a different way. So I'm gonna go and I'm gonna buy that extra $50 worth of supplies, to have that activity in my classroom. So again, I really want to, and for all the listening audience out there and who will listen to the replay later, if you know of a teacher, and it's like Carissa said, instead of buying that Starbucks card, just go and buy some school supplies, or go into the classroom and see how you can help. Maybe you can help with an activity that day, because they need help too. So I want to get into, before we wrap up, because the hour is going really fast here and we could talk forever. So I want to get into your word and your color. So the word
Yes.
that you gave me was fierce. So why that word?
I'm really short. If you can't tell on TV, I'm like 5 foot, trying to be one, and
Oh, you did like I did. I for years I said 5'2", and the doctor's like, you're 5 feet. And I'm like, oh, okay.
well, now I think I'm shrinking, so it's even worse. And I was the shortest in my family, but I always kind of had to fight for my place in the world, being a small person, right? Like you always have to kind of give the extra. So it's like the little dog thing, right? I'm always barking. But I think part of where my fierceness comes from is my upbringing. So I grew up, like I told you, the daughter of two teachers who were actually missionaries to the White Mountain Apache tribe here in Arizona. So I grew up on a reservation, and I grew up in a town that was considered and is still considered the most culturally conservative of the reservation, meaning they're the ones that hang on to the traditions and all of passing along that stuff to each generation. And so I grew up in, I guess, a fierce community, a community that loved fiercely, that gives fiercely, that believes in their culture fiercely. And it really instilled in me to have a passion to be fierce about who I care about, what I care about, and how I go about giving back to the world.
And the color you gave me was black. Why black?
I just love the color black. I don't know why. It's just one that I'm drawn to. I think that it's a strong color. It is, you can't ignore it, I guess.
It's
And
right there, right?
solid, right? It's never going to waver, and it gives me a strong foundation.
I like that word, solid. for black. It's a solid color. Like
Yes, there's no,
you can't get any darker than black, right?
right?
So, any final words you'd like to share with the audience today?
Just want to say again, thank you so much for being here. Thanks for those of you that participated, asking questions and giving comments. That just makes this time even more fun. Miss Liz, you've been an amazing host. And if you're interested in talking to me and figuring out how I might be able to help you on your journey and how to cut down on that time and not go through all the twists and turns I did, please feel free to reach out to me. I'd love to just talk to you. I have sessions that are completely, free to talk to me and figure out whether, my tea is a good match for you. Just go to my website, book an appointment. It has a calendar on there. You can fit it to what you want to do. And we can just have a candid, honest conversation about where you're at. And I can give you some ideas and support. And if my tea isn't a match for what you're going through, I can give you other resources that might be a fit for you. And I can also give you that encouragement that if I could make it through all the things that I have for the last 16 years, so can you.
And I really want to just thank you, Carissa, for being who you are. You're such a light soul, and you really do open the eyes, and the conversation was so easy to have with you this afternoon. And I want to thank all of the guests and audience participation. It always makes the conversations a little easier, and it makes the guests feel like someone is actually listening to us. So it's always nice to hear. And I want to thank the lady from Australia for tuning in as well. It's always nice to know that the other countries are tuning into Tea Time. And I want to thank you, Carissa, for being a voice for special education and for being the voice of mothers, because we need voices like yours out there that can actually show us that, you know what, hey, I'm not a perfect mom, but I learned. And what I didn't know at the time, I learned it. And then when I did learn it, I'm able to share it. And I think that's a strong message to give to all the moms out there. There's no perfect mommy out there, there's no perfect daddy. We are learning as we go. There's no instruction books on parenthood. So again, I want to thank you for that, Clarissa. And I really want to thank you for saying the tea a lot, because the message of Tea Time is to get the teas out there, the teas of difference, the teas of flavors, and the teas of education. So I want to thank you for sharing your tea. And I want to thank everyone for tuning in. And we'll see everybody back here tonight at 7 p.m., where we're going to learn a little bit of different kind of tea. I'm not sure how Miss Liz is going to do this one, but we're going to do it. We're going to pull it off. But we do have Jim Marshall's coming in from the United States. He is an inventor of septomatics. So if you want to know about septomatics, I believe you have to get the book in order to understand it. But we will get there. And again, Clarissa, thank you for being who you are and being a guest on Tea Time. And I want to thank Jacqueline Sokola for giving me. Check out the Amazon network. Jacqueline Sokola is the one that is giving me some of these amazing women. Check her out. She is an amazing lady. I always like to give a shout out to who helps me and who helps Tea Time. So again, thank you for that, Jacqueline. And I want to thank the audience for tuning in, because Thursdays are a busy day. We have morning, afternoon, and evening. And tonight is one last time. And then also tonight, I'll be releasing the April guests. So stay tuned for that. There's a lot of incredible women and men that are going to be joining me in April as well. So again, thank you for that. And I'm going to wrap it up, and I'm going to have a little chit chat with Carissa in the back. And I will see everybody back here tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And if you'd like to leave your questions with Miss Liz and you don't want to leave them in the comments, you can directly email them to me or send them directly to Miss Liz's Facebook page, as most of you have been doing lately. So thank you again for that. And I will see everybody tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with a new cup of TEA for all of you.